The history of civilization suggests that there has always been some form of domination system. A domination system is a power that seeks to control, to enslave people in some way. Examples of these domination systems are empires, monarchies, dictatorships, and even political ideologies like communism or totalitarianism. Today, in the Western world, there is a domination system. It is not an obvious one like a dictatorship or an empire. It is much more subtle, but it's very powerful. It's an insidious domination system. So, what is this insidious domination system at large in our Western world today? What is it that has power over us? What is it that is controlling us? What is it that is enslaving us? A lifestyle. Yes, a lifestyle. Our Western lifestyle is built around three things in particular: accumulation, busyness, and individualism. It seems to me that these three things are controlling us. We have become slaves to accumulation, to busyness, and to individualism. If you don't believe me, I invite you to test yourself. Check it out for yourself. How would you feel if you couldn't accumulate, if you couldn't shop, if you couldn't consume? How would you feel if you didn't have plenty of things to do, to fill your time with? How would you feel if you couldn't prioritize yourself and your own needs? Accumulation, busyness, individualism. So let me explore each of these three things. Let me begin with accumulation. Consumerism is rife in our culture. Fact. And it is driven by capitalism and greed. We are now called consumers. We are now constantly referred to in the media as consumers. For our economies to function, we are told we need to accumulate, to shop, to spend money, backed up, of course, with constant advertising. As a consequence, our lives are full of stuff, things, many of which we do not need and will not use. In the Western world, we now expect to have a huge variety of commodities available to us and available to us now, immediately, instantly. It seems to me we are not able to say, I have enough. In fact, it seems to me we are not allowed to say, I have enough. So, what are the consequences of our addiction to accumulation? Yes, I'm using the word addiction. Our addiction to accumulation. What are the consequences? Well, one obvious one is It's destroying the earth, our common home. Our insatiable desire for more and more things is raping the natural resources of the earth, but it is also destroying the landscape of the earth. It is destroying our beautiful environment. Accumulation is the main cause of climate change. A second consequence of our addiction to accumulation is this: it is suffocating our spiritual longing or our spiritual hunger. It is suffocating it. This is what materialism does. Not only does materialism keep us living at a surface or superficial level, it also prevents us from getting access to our deeper selves. Many people today don't even know that they have a deeper self. The term deeper self is foreign to them. It's not in their vocabulary. A third consequence of our addiction to a consumerism is it is cluttering the hole we have inside with the wrong things. You see, we are made believe that the more possessions we have, the happier we will be. But accumulation is deceiving us. We are falling for a lie. Possessions cannot make us happy. Possessions cannot fill the empty hole we have inside. Only love can fill this hole. Only love. Let me move on to busyness. Busyness. I'm sure you'll agree with me when I say that busyness is a contemporary obsession. We all have to be busy. We all need to be busy. We must fill every moment of every day with something that is productive. We have to fill our time with useful activities. We will not give ourselves permission to do nothing. If we are not busy, we feel guilty. If we take time to be, we feel an inner discomfort. We hear a negative voice telling us that we do not deserve time just to be, that we don't deserve it. But what's more, not only will we not allow ourselves to do nothing, other people will not allow us to do nothing either. You see, other people expect us to be busy. They even assess us by our busyness. A very common statement many of us hear people say to us is this: I know you're very busy. I know you're very busy. It's as if we are equating busyness with importance. Importance. If we are busy, then we must be an important person. So, important question. What is our contemporary obsession with busyness doing to us? What is it actually doing to us? Well, one thing it's certainly doing to us, it's making us restless. Restless. Our Western lifestyle is a restless lifestyle. We have become very restless. We are constantly on the go, moving from one thing to another, from one place to another. Restlessness is not good for the soul. It is not good for our relationships either. A second thing our contemporary obsession with busyness is doing to us, it's creating stress in our lives. Stress. It is making us ill. We know that stress is bad for us. It is bad for our physical health and it is bad for our mental health. Keeping ourselves busy, not being able to relax, is an unhealthy way to live. An overly stretched bow eventually snaps. Thirdly, our contemporary obsession with busyness is preventing us from being still. From being still. Many people have lost the inclination to be still. They have no desire to be still. In fact, they do not know how to be still. But you see, without stillness, we cannot learn the art of silence. And we certainly cannot discover the benefits of silence. And among other things, silence helps us to experience our deeper selves, and that is the place where unconditional love is found, in our deeper self. Fourthly, our contemporary obsession with busyness is causing us to lose the Sabbath. The Sabbath, yes, the Sabbath. You see, we need at least one day in the week to remind us that we are human beings, not human doers, that who we are is more important than what we do. We need a day of rest. In the past, the Sabbath was this day of rest. It was a day to be, a day to play. It was not a day to be productive and busy, and it certainly wasn't a day to accumulate. The Sabbath is good for the human spirit. It is necessary for the human spirit. Let me now move on to the third and final thing I want to talk about, and that is individualism. A philosophy of individualism has been permeating our lives for some time, probably for about 40 or 50 years in the Western world. This philosophy prioritizes the self. In fact, it has led to an idealization of the self. It is all about me. Some call it the me generation. My needs, my happiness, my fulfillment, my development, my career, even my personal, individual salvation. In other words, what's best for me comes first. My freedom is paramount. My freedom to do what I want, to buy what I want, to go where I want. And what's more, not only that, but my personal experience, especially my personal feelings, is actually the basis for the decisions I make. The main basis, indeed the only basis. Now, individualism also includes another contemporary mindset, And that's called self-sufficiency. This mindset says, I am self-sufficient. I can manage on my own. I do not need the help of others. It is best for me to rely on myself. Other people cannot be trusted. So, what are the consequences of this radical individualism that has been permeating our lives? What are the consequences? Well, one consequence is certainly the loss of community. You see, individualism emphasizes the separate self, Too much focus on the separate self makes it very difficult to build community. It actually destroys community. The separate self is in fact an illusion. It's an illusion. Because nothing in the universe is separate. Nothing. Everything is interconnected. Everything is interrelated. Relationship is the reason for our very existence. We belong to one another, we belong to the earth, and we belong to God. We are made for connection and we are made for community. Individualism is undermining this. Individualism is damaging this. A second consequence of our radical individualism is another loss. It's the loss of the values of service and sacrifice. Service and sacrifice are very important values. Humanity needs them. Without them, humanity will struggle to survive. But religion also needs the values of service and sacrifice. Religion, certainly the religion of Jesus, is built around service and sacrifice. You see, in the Christian view of life, our lives are for others, they're not just for ourselves. Indeed, in the Christian view of life, unless and until we give our lives away to others, we don't really have them ourselves at any deep level. That's the paradox. And that paradox blows a big hole right through the heart of individualism. But we're not getting it. We're not getting it. We're not seeing it. A third consequence of our radical individualism is yet another loss. It's the loss of respect for what we call external authority. We are less willing now to obey those in authority. In fact, we have little or no trust for those in authority. You see, we have moved from an obedience-centered culture to an experience-centered culture. Our authority now comes from our own personal experience, especially our feelings. Now, we certainly needed less obedience and more experience, but if we equate experience solely with feelings, we have a problem. We have a problem. Because everything then becomes relative. There is no us anymore. There is only me. And that's dangerous. Now, these three losses, the loss of community, the loss of service and sacrifice, and the loss of respect for external authority, lead to isolation and loneliness. And isolation and loneliness create a darkness in the human heart that causes depression. Our culture today is rife with loneliness. Loneliness is now an epidemic. No wonder we have so much depression. It is significant that only a few years ago the British government made a decision to create a new ministry. The ministry for loneliness, yes, for loneliness. So it seems to me that accumulation, busyness, and individualism are controlling our lives in the Western world. It seems to me that these three things are actually enslaving us. They're enslaving us. And taken together, they are our contemporary domination system. Now, interestingly, the coronavirus pandemic has challenged this domination system. It has actually threatened it. Now, needless to say, the pandemic hasn't destroyed this domination system, but I believe it has wounded it. It has wounded it. The question is, will it recover? Or will something else begin to replace it? Will something else begin to replace it? We don't know. Time will tell. Let's wait and see. But, and this is important, let's be aware of what is happening to us. What is happening to us? Let's be aware of the things that are controlling us. And let's not underestimate the difference each one of us can make in helping to create a different world, a new world, a better world.